You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 193 of Teach Better Talk. My name is Ray Hewart, and as always, I am with my blog writing fanatic co-host, Mr. Jeff Gargis. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good, but if you were to talk to Carrie or Caitlin, who, Carrie runs our blog and everything, and Caitlin, was doing that all, they both tell you that I think that's probably not the most accurate statement, because they usually give me an assignment to write a blog and they give it to me way in advance, because they know I'm just not going to get to it until the last. I'm going to push it back and back and back. So, but I did finish one today for a brand new series that just happened on. So when this podcast comes out, this series that we just launched, which is 9 blogs all out at once, just happened on Saturday. And so I'm glad you mentioned it, because I kind of wanted to highlight that. Can we highlight this series that we have that just came out?
Yes, Jeff. Why don't you start off by talking about what you contribute to the series? Because I don't mean to, overshadow that, but I have the list of everyone else who also contributed as well. So I think we could highlight everybody.
So it's a total of nine posts, correct? I'm saying that correctly?
9 posts.
9 posts. It's the planner for the new normal blog series. It's just another way that we're just trying to help support educators in this crazy time, trying to figure out what the heck is going on, right? So mine is actually called "You Can't Prepare for This," and I'm kind of leave it at that, but it's sort of my take on it, just trying to give a little bit of grace to all of you that are trying to figure this out with so many unknowns and so many changing unknowns that are known one day, not known the next day, confused the next day. It's just nuts out there, and what teachers are having to go through right now is just crazy. So I kind of put my thoughts down on a pretty long post for me, honestly. So it kind of shifted to, title, "You Can't Prepare for This." I don't know any of the other. I don't know if I know the other posts. I know what they're about, but I don't know if I know the titles.
Well, I have all the titles in front of me.
Of course you do. You're just always better prepared than I am. That's just.
Well, to be fair, for the team, I don't know how much your listeners know, but my role is to create some of the images for the team. So really, anything you see in some way, I guess I kind of interact with. So I actually created the headers for these, which is how I have them stored. So I'm going to give a shout out special to Dr. Neil Gupta.
Yeah.
His was 5 design strategies to come back better.
Okay.
So this is all within that planning for the new normal blog series that just came out on Saturday. Hans Apple did culture in the new normal. Jennifer Apple did a blog post on SEL in the new normal. We had Caitlin Giordano, who did grading in the new normal, which seemed very fitting because Caitlin's always talking about grading.
This episode reminded me so much about Caitlin and stuff she talked about. Sorry, I just said that. So that's 5.
Yes, and so then we have Dr. Shemaine Bertrand, who did preparing for school with COVID-19 and the heightened impact of racism in mind.
Wait, she did 2? Or is that all?
No, this is
all built in one.
Post.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that's 6.
Yes, I was able to write a post for this, which is called Essential Reflection and Goal Setting, which actually touches on student goal setting and how important it is to have students reflecting, but also how, as educators, we need to be reflecting as well.
Like it.
Chad, of course, the big guy in the company, Mr. Grid Method. I heard him called the Grid Method Yoda today. I thought that was
Grid Method
funny.
Yoda today. Interesting.
Yeah, that was a good thing. Anyway, he wrote a post. His is instruction in the new normal, which again, very fitting.
Yep, makes sense.
And then a special shout out to Mandy Freilich, who will finish this out. Hers was key tips for beginning a virtual school year. So all of these posts, all 9 of them, is focused on the planning for the new normal blog series that's out for all of you to read. There's so many tidbits of advice. There's a lot of resources that go with these, or other courses or pieces that we suggest you looking into if this topic is interesting to you. And so it's going to be a great blog series. I hope you guys choose to go check it out and maybe connect with the authors, because I know a lot of them in there have been a part of the Teach Better family, but they're also doing a ton of training and facilitated workshops that go into deep dives of these same concepts. So a lot to learn, friends.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of a lot to learn, how about this episode? We have a duo with us for this episode. We haven't done that for a while. We've done it before. It's been a while since we've had 2 on at the same time. So this was super exciting. So we got Mike Szczepanik and Brian Arnot, both with us. They have a really cool. I like. We could kind of get into the story of how they connected because Mike's in New York and Brian's out in Washington, so they're not anywhere near each other. So kind of a cool connection story and what brought them together and why they want to come on and kind of share their stories together here. So Brian is a middle school math teacher. He's got 16 years experience teaching. It's actually a second career. He touched on that a little bit where he was before. Mike is a high school biology teacher. 23 years experience. So much between the two of them. That's a lot of years teaching. And yep. We talk a lot about, going grade lists, standards-based grading, looking at better feedback, more accurate feedback, a lot about relationships and their advice. I thought was some of the best that we've heard for a while. Like I just really love the way they phrased what their advice was to teachers. And I think both of their pieces of advice together go really, really well. And I think that just summed up that they were supposed to be here together, which is awesome. So anything else to add?
So it's such a great episode. No, it's such a great episode. I mean, these really, I know we love having guests on, so many of them. It's usually sometimes the first time we've connected with them. These are real, truly like family members. These guys are so involved in the Teach Better team. I literally spent most of my day today that we're recording this because they popped in on a live video. They were with me in a webinar I was facilitating. I mean, these are like Teach Better gurus. So make sure you stay connected to them because they're challenging themselves with that Teach Better mindset all the time. And those are the people we got to surround ourselves with.
Love it. With that, let's get an episode 193 with Brian Arnot and Mike Szczepanik.
We'll be getting right back to this podcast episode, but really quick, I want to give a special shout out to any leaders in schools. If you are a district leader, a school building leader in any capacity, the Teach Better team has a weekly administrative mastermind, which actually welcomes in district leaders from around the world to come together and collaborate. There is no better time than right now to make sure that you are considering all factors and sharing resources with educators around the country and around the world. This is an amazing get-together that happens every single Tuesday at 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern. And if you have any sort of leadership role, consider this your invitation. You can get the private link to make sure that you're part of this weekly get-together over at teachbetter.com/mastermind. All right, leaders, we'll see you there, but let's get back to this episode.
All right, we are here. We are chatting. We got a special episode for you here. We got two awesome educators on with us today. We've got Mr. Mike Szczepanik and Mr. Brian Arnot, both very, very active in our Teach Better network and our Teach Better family. I feel like I see both of you guys every time we're doing anything, which is awesome. And just chatting with before, kind of like I feel like Teach Better was responsible for your two brilliant minds kind of coming together and forming this relationship online because you guys are nowhere near each other, as far as location. So I kind of feel like you both owe Ray and I just a big thanks for bringing you together.
Jeff would try to get credit for your friendship. Did you hear that right off the bat? He's like, "Hey guys, before we start, Brian, Mike, why don't you thank me for all that I've done?" Did you hear that the same way I did?
If it makes him feel better, then it's cool. I totally give credit to Jeff then.
Oh,
see,
my God.
Exactly. Tell me I'm wrong, right? Okay. No, so super excited to have you both on. Excited to jump into your stories, learn about you, have some fun with now 4 of us all on here. Before we get too far, let's just how you guys feeling, Brian? How you feeling right now?
I'm, to be honest, just a little stressed just because we haven't yet got an announcement about what we're doing in the fall. So that part of it's got me a little worried about what's coming next and how we're going to handle 2 teachers and a first grader. But raring to go on having a talk with you guys. It sounds like a fun way to spend an hour.
Heck yeah. Mike, how you feeling right now?
Yeah, it's kind of similar. I mean, we're trying to figure out what we do with labs and like what does a virtual lab look like? What do we do if we are in person with labs? We have no idea yet either. And like Brian, we have 2 teachers in this household, but we have 2 second graders coming up. So yeah, it's definitely unsettled right now for sure, but excited about the change as well.
Well, Mike, Brian, we have spent almost all day together, I feel like, between live videos and webinars. So this was a great way to kind of end my day today because, now we get to have a deeper dive conversation. Before we get too far into a lot of what I know your passions are, both of you have done so much in education. You're very involved in the Teach Better team. Before we get into all those details, I want to make sure that our listeners learn a little bit about you. So, Brian, I'm going to start with you, and then Mike, I'm going to go to you next. Would you mind kind of answering the question of that, what do you do? Like, what do you do in education?
Thanks, Ray. I am a middle school math and computer science teacher, primarily math, but in the past couple of years, I've started teaching Python to my students as well. I'm also very active in the grading committee and standards-based grading and helping others within my district kind of take that jump into updating their grading practices. So that's a lot of what I've been doing. This is now going to be my 16th year teaching. So it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, I'm in my 23rd year teaching coming up. And outside of Rochester is Hilton High School. That's where I'm from, and teach biology. Kind of at grade level, we have Regents here in New York State, so Regents Living Environment and AP Bio. Been pretty active in. We have this great program in New York State called the New York State Master Teacher Program, and I think that had a long way of getting me kind of like extending me beyond maybe my comfort zone. And that and Twitter. Let me tell you, Twitter is like a gold mine to find out all sorts of like great ideas out there. So, Brian and I found each other on a couple of different chats and through you guys too.
I love it. Yeah, I'm going to continue to take credit for that, but I'm going to have you share how you guys kind of connected and started building this relationship because you're on opposite sides of the country. But really quick, just out of my own curiosity, because we did talk about how you guys are so active in our community, in our family. Ray spent most of today with you guys on webinars and lives and stuff like that. So, how did you connect with us originally, Mike? What was the first connection we had? Was it Twitter?
It might have been. I was very interested in mastery grading at that time, and I think I jumped into it. I saw this mastery chat, and I didn't know what it was all about other than it was mastery grading. I figured, and somehow got connected that way, and then started to discover more about your website, and definitely got sucked right in.
And that's Mastery Chat every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, just so anybody's listening might not know that. Brian, was it Mastery Chat that connected you with us, or was it some other thing? Did you just like feel the awesomeness of Ray just like pulsating through the country? Is that what it was, or?
Actually, it was off of a webinar that I was doing. And then through reaching out through that webinar, which was talking about gradeless practices, was then reaching out and talking to someone that was from fluke.edu, one of the founders, who said that, oh, yeah, and I've used the grid method before. And I said, what's the grid method? And, I kind of start, that sent me down the rabbit hole of searching out the awesomeness that's been Teach Better. And since then, I've become an Academy member and just kind of drunk the Kool-Aid, per se.
Let's give a huge shout out to Fluke, fluke.edu. That's Christine and Melanie. I'm not sure which one we have to thank. I'll thank both of them. They're both amazing. So let's talk on that. Now let's keep that going because I know I took credit earlier, but I want to make sure we give credit due because you guys really kind of connected I don't know if it was where you met, but it's where it sounds like kind of the relationship grew is this connection to Gradeless and a group that you guys are in with that. Do you want to kind of share that story of how that happened? Whoever wants to take that.
I know I connected with this idea of gradeless. It's got to be about 5 years ago. And Aaron Blackwelder, who's out in Washington, fantastic teacher. He saw some of my posts that I was making on Twitter, and I think his first tweet to me was, you don't have to give grades. And I was like blown away by that, and he started talking about his grading conferences and how he lets the kids determine how they grade. or what their grade is, I should say. And I was just kind of floored by this idea, but I loved it at the same time, and I don't know exactly when I saw Brian in some of either the DMs in Twitter or in Boxer chats or whatever, all the umpteen million things that we're both involved in. But I feel like this summer it's been really connected with Brian a lot more because as he has mentioned before, it seems like either I was following him or he was following me. We kind of had this running joke going between us, like, there you are again, Brian. I keep seeing you, Brian. Are you following me, or am I following you? Who knows? So
we see that a lot with people in our world, and I love that. I love when we find out these connections and stuff like that happen. That's really, really cool. So to have any kind of part in it is awesome. So it's really cool. So now let's talk more. One of the things we talk about on this podcast all the time is about failure and about struggle and about overcoming and learning from that. And one of the things that I say I've been fortunate enough to do is to fail a lot. I learned a lot. So I'd like to have each one of you share a story with us about a time that you failed, a time you've had a struggle, and kind of take us there with you. What happened? How did you overcome it? And what did you take away from that experience? Brian, why don't you start us off?
Great. What I'd really look at for me is teaching's been my second career. I was in the tech industry for 10 years, but as I came into teaching, I just, fell into the ways of whatever was being done in my building. And it was so frustrating for me to take the grading practices I was using, which heavily weighted participation and homework and other behaviors were so weighted into the grade that as I went into parent conferences, I never felt like the grade I was talking about was representative of the students. It was always very frustrating for me. And then, after my fourth year, due to teach, cutbacks in the district, I got moved to a different school. And the principal I had at that new school had a, really different philosophy of how she ran things, and basically encouraged us that year to take on something and study it and try to make changes to your practices. And so I really looked at my assessment and grading practices for an entire year, and met with a committee of people and shared ideas. And that's where I really started to research standards-based grading. And then the following year, when the school became a middle school, I jumped in full bore. I was the only teacher in my building doing it. My teaching partners kind of sat back and watched and said, well, it's an interesting idea, but we're not quite ready to jump into that. And they just watched me go through it, giving the same test, but just reorganizing how I gave feedback, breaking it out by standard, and just kind of built from there. So took my frustrations from earlier and started a process of trying to give students better feedback, more accurate feedback on what they actually knew. And it's just progressively every year from that, more people within the building have come on board. Most of my team now uses standards-based grading and have for 9 years. And we've just continued to build that process. And, through reaching out to Facebook groups, the standards-based grading group, and then eventually the Teachers Going Gradeless group, I've just interacted with so many people through the Twitter as well as the Facebook group, and just continue to build those ideas to, moving forward.
I love it. And Mike?
Yeah, I guess my first attempt at gradeless, it kind of sounds like Brian. It's like I think we kind of are cut from the same cloth there. That we see an idea that we like, we just jump right in. At least that's how it is for me. And I kind of was brought into the idea of gradeless in the spring. I actually had a student teacher at that time, and Chris and I we just chatted back and forth about, well, what's this whole concept like. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. Because if I don't decide I'm just going to do it, I probably never will. I'll probably never be quote unquote completely ready. Well, I wasn't completely ready, that's for sure. When I first jumped in, it was, what I should back up here. When we say gradeless, I mean, there might be a teacher out there that's thinking, oh, well, you're going to grade less. Well, I spent more time giving feedback and looking at student work than I ever did before when I was grading. It's certainly not the easy way out, that's for sure. And I found that pretty quickly because it was a lot of work. I mean, I was spending a ton of time trying to give back feedback and, you know, trying to break the culture that has been for them for 10, 11 years for these students, that you turn something in and, you wipe your hands of it, you're done. And I was trying to get them into this kind of feedback cycle where you improve, you reflect, you revise, and it just, they weren't really having it. And a lot of the kids I would, when they gave themselves grades, when we do grading conferences, there were, I would say the vast majority were spot on where I thought they would be. I look at them, they're probably about an 85 student, and lo and behold, they said like 87, or 83. But there was once in a while, there was a kid that was either like assessed themselves way too low, they were too hard on themselves. But then the other side too, they assess themselves too easy. And it was the ones that assess themselves too easy. I realized that I wasn't really being clear on the guidelines that I was giving them. And there was a I don't know what I don't know kind of thing that they had going on. And in their mind, I know this information, and I'm looking, going, no, you really don't. And now how do I break it to you now at 10 weeks when I got to give a final grade to you? So I had to back out of it about this after halfway through the year, because it wasn't working the way I wanted it to, and it was like I didn't like that second half of the year because trying to figure out what was going to work better at the same time, trying to now giving them the same thing that they've always had, and they were happy, we know how this system works, give grades and that kind of stuff. But you know what? I'm really glad that I went through that, because I don't think I learned more than in that, say, 4 months there that I was going through it. And it was hard. I spent a lot of late nights, but boy, it was really valuable to me. Really kind of shaped my philosophy on how I think students should, what they should work for. You always have that, I don't know if it is, maybe it's just me, but when you post a set of grades onto whatever learning management system you have, we have this Infinite Campus. When I press save and post, it's like in 5 minutes, I can almost expect 5 to 10 kids coming into my room going, oh, I didn't know I didn't have this done. I didn't have this done. And, even though I may have been saying that, but they saw the grade suddenly drop. And that was like the clue. It's like, that always bothered me. That shouldn't be the only reason that you're doing the thing that you're doing, is some number on some computer system. That shouldn't be it. There's got to be more to it. So yeah, I'm really glad I failed as badly as I did, and had to go through that. So,
well, you guys both know that I love talking grading, and or lack thereof. And I think it's so fitting that as we talk about failure, that grading becomes a part of that conversation, because there are so many learning opportunities as any educator changes the way they approach feedback and grading and providing students what they need to be successful. So that seems totally fitting. And I really think it's going to probably continue to apply here. Question 4, when we talk about what's exciting about education, I mean, clearly grading is exciting, right? Clearly this idea that educators, especially now more than ever, are taking on this idea of feedback being a priority. But Mike, I want to throw this to you. I mean, of everything going on in education, all that you're doing, what's really fueling your fire and keeping you excited about what's going on in education these days?
Well, we talked about it in the webinar a little bit this morning. I've been involved in some professional development high school about assessment capable learners and teacher clarity. And it's really been helpful to me. It's been, especially during that online period, that virtual learning we had in the spring, where I just realized that, like, my assignments, the directions are not clear enough. They're not coming across the way I expect them to. So how can I be clearer? And students want that. Students want to be successful, and they want to know exactly what do I have to do to be successful. And the idea of assessment capable learners is that they know what they're supposed to do. They know what they're supposed to be able to do. They know the tools that they're supposed to be able to use, and they know whether they've met that goal or not, and what to do next. And isn't that like the kind of like students we want to have in our classes? And the grid method and grade lists, boy, it all melds together. It's like it feels like the glue that's holding it all that could hold it all together. And it's just very, very exciting. I'm kind of like configuring all of my assignments, not so much because these are the assignments I've done, but because they match some success criteria, they match some other learning objectives that I've now fleshed out in a very systematic way as directed by this. So it's been really helpful to me. I'm really excited about it.
Absolutely. Brian, what do you think? What's really fueling your fire, keeping you excited about education, all that you're doing? What would be your response?
For me, it's the growing movement that I've seen towards competency-based education and a decreased emphasis on grades. Those are, I see so much more conversations about that on Twitter, particularly coming out of this spring with everybody, having de-emphasized grades as they were giving them largely, and just starting to look at other ways to assess what students actually know and can do. And for me, it's been, that's what's driven me all summer long, is looking at ways of, okay, how can I structure my time with them so that it's more successful, so that kids know exactly what they need to do and things are clear, and so that they can focus on learning and moving from there as far as what is my next step. And me helping my team figure out how can we most efficiently give feedback, not how efficiently can we grade, but how efficiently can we provide meaningful feedback to our students so they know what is their next step, whether it's an extension or whether it's a correction. How can we help them continue to learn and grow?
Oh, perfect. See, I love that response. And I think that kind of leads into, the question I was going to ask you next is, so how do we do that? In question 5 in Teach Better Talk podcast always has to do with giving advice. So, Brian, I'm going to go back to you right away on this one. If you could give a piece of advice for us to be doing that better, for us to, support educators all over the world right now, be able to support their students better, what type of advice would you be giving?
Really, that advice I'd have to say is if you've researched an idea and you believe that it's good for students, I would strongly encourage you to go to your building leaders and get their support and jump into it. Even if you are the only one doing something, jump into it and take that chance to find a better way to meet the needs of our students.
Mike, what about you?
I would say, don't do things because that's the way it was done for you, and don't do things because that's the way everybody else does it. Do it because you believe in it, and to just not be afraid to fail forward. Be bold about something because it has evidence behind it, has research behind it. There's so much educational research that's available to us today, and to try these things out. You have an opportunity to be your own educational scientist, and to test out some of these ideas with yourself and with your students, and to just at the same time let your kids in on this. I talk all the time. Hey, I read this article. I want to try this out with you guys. Let's see how it goes. It sounds really cool. And they're like, they're probably like, oh, here he goes again. But they like it because I also ask them, well, what did you think? I think that's another thing. Let the kids give you feedback. Like, let them tell you how they think you're doing, because they're the ones where we're all working for, and they have seen so many teachers, at least by the time they get to high school, and they know, what has been successful, what hasn't. They can give you a lot of insight into being a better teacher.
I love that. Both just all around great piece of advice there about, going after things if you believe in it, failing boldly, failing forward. And then I love the last piece there, Mike, about talking to your students, like use them for your own research, right? And I love that saying that you're able to be your own educational scientist. So great advice. They're really excited. I'm excited about this because we're gonna pin the two of you against each other here. So I'm gonna have you. We're gonna do one of you going through these 6 questions, and then we're gonna do the other one. I'm gonna see who does it better. Ray, what do you think?
Let's do it.
All right, so let's go. I'm gonna flip an imaginary coin here, and Mike, you're gonna go first.
Ooh, I knew you were gonna pick Mike first. Just saying.
Right, you just get me, Ray.
I do. I get you.
All right, Mike, you ready?
I'm ready.
Goal is to answer each one of them in 15 seconds or less. What is one EdTech tool you cannot live without?
All the Google stuff. Google Classroom, like the ability to just press that out to everybody and a flip of a switch. It's really pretty amazing.
Give us a book you're reading right now.
Stop Talking and Start Influencing by Jared Cooney Horvath.
And who do we need to follow on social media today?
Well, I have a ton that I follow, but some that I could mention. Ken O'Connor, Rick Wormeli, very influential for me in grading practices.
Give us a good YouTube channel or website for educators.
I think I'm going to steal Brian's. I know he wants to use this, but Teachers Going Gradeless. So, sorry, Brian.
Thief.
Hey, it's the benefits of going first, right? Take the coin. Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
I'm involved with video coaching, so you can learn so much by videotaping yourself and watching yourself. How often do we get to see ourselves perform?
Love that.
So,
and finally, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Look at mistakes as an opportunity to grow, and try not to think of them as a judgment on your own abilities.
Yeah.
Not bad at all, my friend.
Yes, so good.
Where's the bell? We need the bell. Ding, ding. Okay.
I know, seriously, there should be like some do. You got to add in, Jeff, like a little do.
All right, Brian, you're up. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, what is one EdTech tool you cannot live without?
Got to be Seesaw. The ability for students to reflect, interact, and to give that instant feedback to parents.
Okay, he just went with my favorite thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're winning Ray over there.
Oh, man.
Well,
sorry,
you know I'm Team Ray. I mean, sorry.
Yes.
Oh, and with one simple line, he loses the whole thing. All right, let's keep it going. Let's give us a book you're reading right now.
Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain by Zaretta, Hammond.
Who do we need to follow on Twitter, Instagram, social media today?
Got to be Thomas Guskey and Aaron Blackwelder.
Give us a good YouTube channel or website for educators that Mike did not steal from you.
Well, then, it's going to have to be teachbetter.com.
Oh, alrighty then. I'll give you $20 afterwards. Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
Connect to people that inspire and energize you.
And lastly, the best piece of advice you've ever received.
From my favorite principal, if it's good for kids and won't get us fired, do it.
Ooh, I like that.
That was good. All right. Here's the best part about this little competition is all we really did was just doubled up on the value. So I love it. That was all great. I think we both nailed it too. Do we have 2 trophies, Ray? Can they share the trophy? How does that work?
No, they absolutely each get their very own Teach Better Talk trophy.
We've got to make more trophies. Okay,
it's totally fine. We can handle it.
You guys can look for those trophies coming in the mail, and just remember, if you don't get it, Ray's the one responsible for that.
I'm pretty sure Jeff has said numerous times on the podcast that he packages them up, so let's not even pretend that Ray does that. I love it. Well, I want to make sure, guys, I know that, obviously you're, fabulous members of the Teach Better team. We so love that you engage. with so many of the things that we're able to do and support teachers on. And I just have loved interacting with both of you in so many different mediums. But I do want to make sure that our listeners also get connected to you, just continuously building on the people who can talk shop about grading. I love that. So, Mike, I'm going to go to you first. Can you share how people can stay connected?
I'm pretty active on Twitter. So it's at my name, Mike, and then I'll spell the last name. It's SZ, excuse me, CZEPANIK.
Yeah, it's perfect. Brian, what about you?
Twitter and Facebook are the two places I use for education the most. So Twitter is at Brian_Arnot, and Facebook, just search for Brian Arnot.
I love it. Guys, please make sure you go connect with them. It is totally worth it.
Absolutely. You can find all the links, all the resources, everything we talked about in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as those really important links for connecting with Mike and Brian afterwards, keeping this conversation going. So head over to teachbetter.com for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you can give us a rating and a review, we'd really appreciate that as well. And let's keep taking this just one step further. Think of just 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and connect with these amazing educators, and share this podcast with them. Mike, Brian, it's always fun when we get to do something a little bit different, shake it up a little bit. 2 guests, always a great thing, a lot of fun. We love both of you. You guys are such a, so involved in everything. We love seeing your faces everywhere. Now I love having your voices here on the podcast. So thank you so much for taking the time out with us and hanging out and having some fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. This was fun.
Until next time, let's get out there. Let's teach better.